Okay, so this is our last video, and appropriately, the video is about death awareness. And this is going to sound really strange to most of you, but death awareness is one of my favorite topics in psychology, probably because I'm an existentialist. And as I kind of introduced in the last video, existentialists believe that the fear of death keep people from actually really living their lives. I would have preferred to do this video at like sunset. I just thought that would have been perfect. Like the sun setting, like it's sunset of your life. I think about death a lot. I talk about death a lot. And I have a tattoo on my back shoulder that says Memento Mori. Memento Mori means in Latin, remember death, and there's two reasons for that. One is that if you remember death, if you have personal death awareness, then you'll live your life more fully. That's one idea. And the other idea is to keep you humble. Apparently, a slave had said it to one of the emperors. I don't know all the names and dates or anything, but a slave said it to an emperor to try to keep him humble. It was basically, remember to be humble because we all die. You're no better than anyone else in that way. So I love this topic. I have a couple of quotes that I'm going to read. The first is from Yalom. Yalom, I've probably mentioned him already in this class. He's my absolute favorite writer. He's a psychiatrist. Used to be a professor at Stanford. He's professor emeritus at Stanford University, and he writes a lot of books about psychology, and I've read just about every one of them. I'm reading an existential therapy textbook right now. It's like this thick, 500 pages or so, all about laying out the argument that the fear of death is the real problem with just about all problems. So anyhow, the quote is, though the physicality of death destroys us, the idea of death may save us. And the whole idea behind this, as I've kind of said, is that when you realize I'm going to die, like I have a limited amount of time on this planet, things become more important. You savor them more. You stop wasting as much time as we typically waste, worrying or letting fear choices dominate our lives. The other quote is from a book I read, which I've mentioned already in this class, called The Subtle Art of Not Giving an F. I don't want to be too vulgar. And the quote is, I took it right out of the book, when I came to the startling realization that if there really is no reason to do anything, then there is also no reason not to do anything. That in the face of the inevitability of death, there is no reason to ever give in to one's fear or embarrassment or shame, since it's all just a bunch of nothing anyway, and that by spending the majority of my short life avoiding what was painful and uncomfortable, I had essentially been avoiding being alive at all. I didn't put my glasses on to read that, so I'm sorry if it seemed slow. That's a great quote. Mark Manson wrote that book. And in that passage, what he's talking about is as a teen, he was about 19 or 20. One of his friends died in a tragic death, an accidental diving death. I think. Like he dove in to a lake at night off a cliff, and he couldn't get back to the top and drowned. And how Mr. Manson, I guess that sounds weird because of Charles Manson. How Mr. Manson went into like a depression and felt like there was no point in living. But then he realized, as this quote says, I don't want to reread it, but when I came to the startling realization that if there is really no reason to do anything, then there is also no reason not to do anything. So he felt like there's no reason to live. There's no reason to go to work. There's no reason to get a degree. You're just going to die anyhow. But then he flipped that, and he came to the realization that there's also no reason not to do it. Like, screw it. I'm going to die anyhow. And this is how I live my life, and I think I'm pretty happy the majority of the time. I know it seems weird. There's Buddhist meditations where you meditate about dying, about being dead, about turning to ash, basically, or decomposing. I try to remember death all the time. It's sometimes sad. I'm getting older, you know. I tell my kids all, like, I joke with my kids about my death. I'm sure they don't love it, you know. I do this thing on my Facebook page called Sarcastic Fortunes because I eat at Panda Express like 3 times a week at least. And I get the fortunes and I take a picture and I make some sarcastic response up. And I made one for after I'm dead. That I told my daughter when I die, I want her to put it up on my Facebook page. And she's like, okay, Dad, please don't die. You know, but this is how I am. This is how I approach life. And people think it's morbid, but I think I've lived a much fuller life as a response. And that's what this whole idea is about. That's what personal death awareness is about. And people are afraid of it. And they're afraid of death. And as such, they don't really live. That's the whole argument. All right, I guess that's it. That's it for the course. It's been great. And I hope you took something from this with you that will help you lead a happier life. Thanks.